Namaste, Jai Bharat. Even in a place like Pakistan, there is this phenomenon of ex-Muslim. This ex-Muslim phenomenon is growing all over the world and taking deeper roots. And in Pakistan itself, the kind of reports that I get is that there are 5 lakhs plus ex-Muslims already and many more in the making. Now, when you talk about ex-Muslims, there are 2 categories in ex-Muslims. One is, from a Bharatiya perspective, Ghar Wapasi. Ghar Wapasi is not just ex-Muslim. Ghar Wapasi is a kind of people who realize their ancestry, like Malaysia, who realize their ancestry, that once upon a time these were their culture. These were the kind of practices their ancestors had, which were mostly forcibly destroyed by alien invaders, and then eventually got them converted into the convenient religion at that time for the sake of their lives. That's Islam. They, through generations, now these generations, quite a few, many people realize that our ancestry is much better than whatever things we do now, and under the frame which we are squeezed into, pushed into. And those from the Hindu ancestry, for them it is Ghar Wapasi. Those from the Hindu ancestry understand, or tries to, first of all they try to understand what is Hindu ancestry, what is Hindu Dharma, and they find, first thing what they find is the unlimitable freedom of faith which they have in the Sanatana Dharma. There is no prescription. There is no fear of punishment and threats of, there is no fear of punishment and threats, and there is no promises of rewards after death. There is no question of after death life. For us, after death, what happens is the question is answered as moksha, and moksha is to become one with what is the ultimately real. In other words, moksha is simply logically, it's a becoming of from where you came originally. Before your birth, you must have been something about which you do not know. After your death, also, you should go to the same situation. This is logically explained, and that's moksha. This is necessarily unknown and unknowable so long as you are in this kind of situation of a life. Because the identity, what we speak of now, is spurious in the sense it's not a channel. You have not brought some identity with you. There are instances of people claiming about rebirth and all. That's a different story which has to be discussed separately on a different level. Now, your identity, whatever is, that evolved here along with your development as a person, and which ceases to be with the end of you as a person. So this kind of identity doesn't transcend death. And this is a simple common sense logic, and all other promises of religion, that is promises of reward and threat of punishment, deface this reality. It makes no difference to you that if you do not know what you are punished for, because you don't carry this identity after, with death towards something that's happened. Death. In fact, the very concept of life after death itself is contradictory, because life contradicts death. So the belief in life after death is a contradictory faith. There should be some other situations, if at all there is something after death, should be ideally in some kind of form which are not intelligible to this kind of minds that we have right now. So this understanding in some forms happen to people who realize that what we are is not really what we are supposed to be. Our ancestry is something different. That's Hindu or Sanatani. They are doing this Ghar Wapasi. So from one faith they are consciously and conscientiously shifting to what their ancestors were holding in complete realization of that their ancestors were these, they would like to follow them. Not all, some. That's Ghar Wapasi. And that Ghar Wapasi people are ex-Muslims. But others, those who don't understand anything, they completely fed up to the teeth with the kind of belief system imposed on them through Islam. So they just get fed up of this religion of Islam and their kind of organizations, their kind of establishment, their kind of structure. Some want to get rid of it, and they're so fearful. They don't want to get into another frame, if at all any. So they just simply are ex-Muslims. They don't really bother about faith. In most cases, they are either agnostics or atheists. So that's another kind of ex-Muslims. With Bharat, most of the ex-Muslims are, in fact, a considerable amount of ex-Muslims are Gharvapasi characters. But there are others who do not care about whatever. They simply don't want to have, don't want to do anything to it religion at all. So such ex-Muslims are also there. The point nonetheless is that this phenomenon of ex-Muslim is catching the world. And Pakistan, when you say there are 5 lakhs plus ex-Muslims already and many in the making, in spite of threat of death, most of the ex-Muslims who claim and expose and those who speak that ex-Muslim do not live in Pakistan, because they can't live in Pakistan. Had they been living in Pakistan, they would have been dead in Pakistan. So most of them are somewhere else, from where they could say of being ex-Muslims. But those who are inside the Pakistan would never dare speak about it. Given an opportunity, they might come. So the figure of ex-Muslims 5 lakhs might increase, and these 5 lakhs are also something like, not exhibiting themselves, not exposing themselves, but are ex-Muslims. They don't go for practices. Somehow they manage to exist. But in a nation like Pakistan, if there are people in the making of ex-Muslims, and mind it, I'll tell you, many of them will be educated girls. They realize how a woman is treated as inferior, much inferior to man, and that of course has got lineage of some other thing, much inferior to men, and are only instruments to increase pleasure of man and to be used by man in whichever case. And they can be given more serious punishment for similar offences. In fact, death sometimes to exclusively for women, not for men. So when they see these things, they might naturally be wanting to get rid of this thing, like their burqas or pardas. Situation is happening. So this is something which is globally happening. All over the world it's happening. And its reflection is even in places like Pakistan, where everything is discussed through, everything is perceived through something of a religion which they think that they belong to, whereas they don't really belong to that. We shall meet again. Namaste. Jai Bharat. Jai Sri Ram.